I grew up in an emotionally and abusive home. My parents weren't very affectionate. We left church and that was the end of speaking about God or Jesus or anything like that.
Born to a single mom, grew up without a dad in Detroit, Michigan. Wasn't a lot of people like me. And, you know, that caused me to have to fight and grind and scrape by. My mom did her best, but without a dad around, it was basically, I was the man of the house. By the time I was 14, 15 years old, I was just headed right into the streets.
When I was younger, I grew up in a real broken family situation. My parents were in jail. I bounced from house to house and school to school. Growing up as a young child without any security or stability or anything was very hard on me, and I kept to myself a lot. I was just looking for somebody to love me, I guess, to care about me. I met this guy that I grew up with. We've known each other since we were really little, and we started, you know, dating and everything, and our relationship got to more of a serious level. And that's when I found out that I was pregnant.
I think the biggest emotional burden was not having that love from my dad, so I ran to other guys. I was sexually active by 16 and found myself pregnant my junior year of college. My parents told me, you cannot do this to our family. We can take care of this. We can fix this. You need to get an abortion or just don't come home.
When I was 13, I had made a promise to myself that my child would never grow up without a dad. You know, I had a girlfriend that I met when I was young, and she ended up pregnant. And being uneducated and just not very wise and not knowing the Lord and not knowing anything, you know, abortion just seemed like the logical route to go. You know, you fast forward to 18 years old, I'm having the best illegal year of my life, if you would, and all of a sudden it catches up and I get arrested. I got set up. I was going to jail. The fact I was able to bond out was incredible. As far as I was concerned, I had 20 years to jam into, however many months I had till my trial was over. And I met another girl who was from my past. Got to the point to where my court date was coming up and I knew that this was going to be the end. And I went to a party, and then one of her friends came up, and her friends was like, so did you tell him? And I was like, tell me what? And she was like, you didn't tell him? You didn't tell him you're pregnant? And I was just like, what? Wait, oh. And her response was, you know, nothing, it's okay. I was like, no, it's not okay. My kids are not growing up without a dad. And she ended up going and having the procedure done and terminating the pregnancy.
I was very afraid of what my aunt and uncle would think or what they would say, because they brought me up well. They, you know, taught me the right things and took care of me and everything that I needed, and I kind of felt like I let them down. A woman at my church told me about Women's Hope and told me to come here to take a pregnancy test and that they would help me through this.
I had no idea what to do. I didn't have the boyfriend support. I didn't have my parents' support. I was completely on my own. And that's what brought me back to Women's Hope.
I ended up being sentenced to a 15 to 45 year sentence at 19 years old, and I couldn't see the end of that. I remember sitting with my head in my hands praying, God, if there is a God, I need some help. A year and a half into me being locked up, I mean, God had broke me down, broke my heart. Sitting in prison for crimes committed, and none of those coming to the forefront like those 2 abortions did. Like those 2 children that I robbed God of. About 4.5 years after that miracle happens, God says, okay, it's time for you to go home. And while having a 15-year minimum, I ended up getting out in 7.5 years. And I'm sitting in church one morning, and there's a lady there giving a testimony. She happens to be the lady who's in charge of the post-abortive counseling, like girls who have gone through the procedure and still just need restoration the same way I did. And I remember her saying, like, you can get involved, there's something you can do.
I had my son in February, and I had to be at home for a while since I had a C-section, but once I was able to get out, I brought him here, and they give you kind of like a welcome baby goodie bag, and I showed him off to everyone. And since I was able to get out again, I started to come here for the classes again, since I was kind of on my own with not a lot of family involved. So instead of me being able to ask them questions, it kind of helped me do it.
And Women's Hope just loved on me and supported me and shared the gospel with me that I needed more than anything. And just hearing that there was such a thing as a loving God. And I think when I was pregnant, God just took a hold of my heart. The emotional support I felt here was beyond belief. I never had anybody sit down and ask me how I was feeling and just pray for me and pray for my child. It felt like unreal to get that type of support from complete strangers. And I had my son on April 4th, 2012. I felt so alone when I was pregnant. I was young, still in school, single, that I wanted to come be a client advocate here.
Ended up going through the client advocate training, and it was funny. I was the only guy out of about 15 people, but another miracle happens, and it's through that advocacy training that I meet my wife.
Will started coming over and bringing me Bible studies and bringing me dinners and just catching up and making sure I was okay. And that flourished into an engagement, and then we got married. He adopted my son, Hudson.
Here I am, a man that has terminated some of God's children, and His grace is so powerful that He has allowed me to take on a son, to adopt a son. He's beautiful, he's amazing, and I just give God glory for that.
We're married and just growing a family together, and God has just continued to provide for us in such an amazing way.
I'm very, very happy with the decision that I made. My son's everything that I could possibly imagine for my son. He just makes me realize that I'm doing the right thing. It's just amazing. That's all I have to say.
God's just given me an avenue to work with Women's Hope and the dads that come in here. The testimony that I have of Women's Hope, it's huge in our lives, in my son's life. That in and of itself is enough reason for me to serve, because I know it changes lives. It changed mine.